We don't want the horse, especially a horse that we worked and put love and attention into. Like you grow attached to these horses. You don't want them to end up in, a bad situation. That's like the most rewarding part for me is watching that horse come in on the first day, getting to really work and put hands on it, and then seeing it go off to a home that it's what we call like a decent citizen of society. That is the most rewarding part because you see the blood, sweat, and tears load up on that trailer and get out of there and know that they're going to be okay. I want to start training the horse as soft as possible. But I always tell everybody, like, if you never put them under a certain amount of pressure and everything is just super quiet and sweet the whole time, the first time that they need to get energy and they need to get amped up, you don't know what it's going to do because you've never put it under that amount of pressure. That, like, with your heart rate up, your adrenaline running, it's a recipe for disaster. So
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the wild Mustang. Michael, great to have you here on the Touch of a Mustang podcast.
thank you for having me on.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the Mustang world?
Sure. So I am based out of Leeds, Alabama. I work for a barn that's all we do is we gentle Mustangs. We've been doing it 9 years now. I think we've counted up 9 years, and over the 9 years we've done 300 Mustangs. We've gentled them and placed them into
Wow.
homes and things like that. Um, just a little bit about doing that. It's been a very rewarding experience. We also get to do like rescue horses. We've gone to sell barns and gotten some rescue horses and Mustangs from there as well. So we've been doing that. I mean that's pretty much the gist of it as far as like what I do and in that sense. That is my full time job, and I'm pretty lucky that I get to do something like that.
Yeah, that is a great job to have.
Yeah.
Where did your journey with horses start? Where did you first start becoming involved
Oh,
with them?
well, my dad actually worked from the time I was growing up. He's always worked at horse barns, and so like I've always kind of been around horses. I've never been the training guy though. I've always been the guy that's like picking stalls or whatever. And I never really had an interest in like learning or whatever doing that until like I started working at Blue Sky Farm, and it kind of one day I was just called in. I was just a maintenance guy, and I was called in to, hey, hold this horse. It won't, quit trying to bolt away from me. And the next thing I know, all these years later, I'm training horses full time. And so, like, I'm very green into this, very new into this, like, as far as like how I got started, if that makes sense. I didn't take the typical journey that people do where they have riding lessons and they learn to love horses that way. I just learned to love them because it was my job essentially. But it's been a very powerful journey, just kind of getting to know a lot, absorbing all the knowledge I can, and getting to kind of help them along the way. So
Yeah. What led this barn to go in on Mustangs and rescue horses, all the difficult ones, so to speak?
So the lady I work for, her name is Babby Steislinger, and she rode horses from the time she was a child. Like, she told me not too terribly long ago that she had a horse that really helped her through a traumatic experience as a child, and she worked for some cutting trainers in the 20s and things like that. And then she went off and started a business and became very successful doing that, and was looking one day for a way to give back to horses, the horses that had helped her. And she ran across Mustangs. I think they were like posted on one of those. kinda shipping pages, the types on Facebook or something, and from there, like, she adopted or bought, I think, 3 or 4 Navajo, Mustangs and, the res horses, and from there, like, she kinda just decided that was the route she was gonna take, and it's worked out perfectly for her, you know? It's a really good way for her to give back and in the sense of, doing it for the Mustangs.
Yeah. So as a kid, you were kind of around horses. Did you find yourself drawn to them at all, or was it just kind of tagging along with your dad doing his
It
thing?
was it was more tagging along with my dad, like, I knew horses, like, I could lead them and pick up feet and do things like that, but I never had, like, an innate interest into going like, "Hey, I want to pursue this as a career," or, "I want to do this as, a hobby." I was just kinda like, they're horses, they're cool, in high school, I thought it was a really good way to try to, maybe pick up chicks, but it didn't really pan out for me there
No.
either, because like, you can't bring somebody around and be like, "Oh, yeah, here's a horse," but I can't ride it, I can't do anything with it, so but, yeah, it I like I said, I can appreciate the beauty in anything, and especially with horses, they're beautiful creatures, they're smart, they're just like people. It's wild to see the different personalities, and then getting into the Mustangs, it was a whole different world. It was like the fight or flight in these guys and the moment that they give you that trust, and it just like from that point, like the very first time I picked up a horse's hoof and it let me do that, it trusted me enough to do that and then, pick it out and do all this. It was like that moment was like an aha moment for me, and it was just like, okay, like I could see where, like, people get, like, really into this, like, it's like a drug almost, and they just get drawn into it and want to keep doing it, so, um, I don't know if that answered your question. That was a very long-winded way to say why,
Yeah.
but,
No, that was great. And so what's that journey kind of been like for you going from a maintenance guy holding a horse as just a helper to now training these animals for full time?
it's been, a quick a journey, I wanna say, like, but very difficult at the same time because like I said, I was not the guy that, like, knew anything about horses. I couldn't teach a horse to stand for 5 seconds very still or whatever, Um, it it was definitely there was a lot of, like there was a learning curve in there for me, and, like, I'm very thankful that, like, my boss lady was very patient with me, and, the barn manager at the time, who was actually, she and I were dating at the time, like, were super patient with me, and it got to the point that it enveloped my life, and I, like, would go home, and I would try to spend time with my family and friends, but all I'm thinking about is horses and how can I help this horse and how can I do this? And so, watching a lot of videos, talking to a lot of different people has really like, it's really, um, like kind of ingrained that passion in me and even more, getting to hear the different types of, how different trainers do different things and how they, um, you know, uh, kind of see this problem and how I would see this problem now. It's really cool to get involved with people that are into training or the horse world just in general and say, hey, like, what is your thoughts on this? This particular horse is doing X, Y, and Z. Like, how would you pursue that? Like fixing that problem or helping them through this, it's really cool. So just as far as how my journey went. It was long and difficult, but it's been, like, really rewarding. It's been the best experience I've had. So,
What have been some of the hardest aspects about it?
mm, well, like I said, I didn't really know anything about training, horse. It's more difficult just with Mustangs in general. I think everybody kinda knows that Mustangs are more difficult horses just, because they're feral. The first time they see you is, they're used to seeing something walk around on 4 legs, and here we are standing on 2 and reaching out with another 2, like, "Hey, can I please touch you?" Um,
Yeah.
that's been kind of the drawback for me on that is, like, how do I convince them that this is okay? And so I just as my own personality, and everybody that knows me will tell you, like, I'm very much, like, task driven, I'm very goal oriented, and I want to just go ahead and get the job done, and let's keep moving. And so the hard part for me has been taking that away out of my own personality and my own sense of who I am, because that's not what that horse needs. And I'm sure people that have worked with just regular domesticated horses and then worked with Mustangs know that there's a huge difference in the two. And so I can really work with a Mustang, and it might take me 3 months to accomplish something that it would take me, 3 hours to accomplish with a domesticated horse, if that makes any sense. And that's been the hard
Yeah.
part for me, was getting the patience and understanding of getting to do that with a horse.
Yeah. I think that's a big one for a lot of people. I think it's also probably part of the reason that a lot of Mustangs don't end up making it in their first placements because
Mhm.
people have the same expectations as you might have with a domestic horse. And sometimes
Right.
that pans out, and a lot of times it doesn't. There's a lot of barriers and obstacles along the way.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And I mean, I love that people are interested in horses and the Mustangs and things like that. And I love that the best program in the world has been the Forever Branded program or the TIP program, or whatever it is, because it's a network of trainers that have that skill and that experience to give that horse the best possible um, chance at a life outside of being on the range. And people see them and they're like, "Oh man, like this, it's a beautiful horse, but I don't know anything about horses." Well, maybe a Mustang isn't where you should start off, but we hope that as the trainers, we have done enough for this horse, and put enough time and effort and patience into this horse that it's just as understanding with its new owner. And, sometimes it just doesn't pan out. And, luckily at the place where I work, we have the ability to take that horse back and say, like, "Hey, you didn't match up. We're gonna take the horse back, and we'll, retrain it, or we'll, try to find it a different home and see if we can sort you out with something that's a little bit more akin to your skill set or whatever." And but there's some people that don't have that ability, and that's where you get those horses that get in the bad situation. And that's why we love being able to help out as much as we can. Like, we try to stay in touch with all of our adopters, and if they ever need anything, I've driven all over the country just going to help other people that have adopted horses from us. I've been
Wow.
on the phone at
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night with somebody saying, "Hey, like, do you having this problem? Let me help you." So it's a tough world for them, and we just try to make it easy for them if we can. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. That support system is huge. That's definitely something that made it so that I could keep my horses when you get to those stuck places, having someone that you can kind of go to, get a little encouragement from.
Oh yeah,
Um, And I also think, just training these horses is one of the best gifts we can give them. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy around the Mustang issue, but once they are
yes,
gathered, like I don't think there's any greater protection than a committed private home or facility that's going to keep these horses. And part of that, a key piece of that is that they are trained and can be safe and happy in the human world. So
oh
training is
yeah.
such a huge part of that.
It is, and if you can put time and effort into it and give that horse the best possible start to a domesticated life, um, it's the drawback is going to be, what is the person who's adopting the horse, how is that going to work out for them? And that's why we try to make ourselves readily available to kind of assist with things like that, because we don't want the horse, especially a horse that, like, we've worked and put love and attention into. Like, you grow attached to these horses. You don't want them to end up in, a bad situation. So, like, that's why we're always just super careful about, um, trying to match up the horse to the person and their skill set and things like that because, we don't nobody wants that. They have a hard enough life out on the range, and if we can, train them, put some training on them and, some gentling and make them sweet little puppy dogs, then,
Yeah.
people are more likely to wanna keep them around, you know?
Yeah. And it is pretty incredible because a lot of the Mustangs are very personable once they realize they're not going to die around people. Once you can
Yeah.
disengage that fight or flight response and help them realize they're safe, they can have some of the greatest relationships with people.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen. I'll tell you a story right now. We have this horse at the barn, and his name is Smooch. He's a really, really sweet horse. He's a big. He's probably I don't know 15 to Palomino. He's 7 years old, and he has been one of the toughest horses I've worked. He has tested for what I always say. He's tested my gangster all the time. But he learns so quick, and when he learns, he gets it. And to watch this horse with the kid that's adopted him, I've watched this horse like try to vault away from me, never being aggressive to me or anything, but just very scared, very like very flighty. Um, and to watch him with his adopter, who is this young kid, I think he's in his 20s, and he just melts with this kid. I mean, it is the wildest thing to get to see him just, like, sit there and his just lip just hanging down, and he's just as quiet as can be, and I'm like, "Well, why weren't you like that for me?" I was trying to do the
Yeah.
same thing, you know? So, like, it's one of those things that's, like, getting them past that point and then, like I said, lining them up with the correct home, that's a huge part of it. Like, I know that they're gonna keep this horse because, like, this guy the kid and this horse are just, like, they're just best friends. They're just best friends, and there's no
So,
other way to put it. So, yeah, a lot of it is just we do the work to get them to where they are somebody's best friend, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of us think that with Mustangs, like, why don't you just everything's okay. But just the reality that they're coming into this world that's so strange to them with people that aren't always safe, that they can get to that point where they are trusting and building that relationship, and like you say, just really having a partnership with a human is pretty incredible.
It is. It's definitely, getting to see it too kinda firsthand. It's that's, like, the most rewarding part for me is, watching that horse come in on the first day, getting to really work and put hands on it, and then seeing it go off to a home that it's what we call like a decent citizen of society. Um, that is the most rewarding part because you see the blood, sweat, and tears, load up on that trailer and get out of there and know that they're gonna be a okay, and be
Yeah,
very very happy where they are.
yeah. What are there some other difficult horses that are especially memorable that you encountered in your time?
I so there's a ton of them. What I've found is that I don't I never want to I always want that horse back. As much as I learn going forward, I always go, oh man, now I wish I had this horse. I had a horse that not too terribly long ago. This is probably I don't know 3 years back. Um, he just would not, pick up his back feet without trying to, kick my hand off. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I went through everything that I know. And now that I've, gained a little bit more knowledge, I'm like, oh, okay, now I wish I could have that horse back because like
Mm,
now I know how to handle that situation a little bit better.
yeah.
Now he went off to a really good home and the lady was super gentle with him and got him picking up his back feet. She sent me a picture of it not too terribly long ago after he was adopted and said, got him, and I'm like, what'd you do? What'd you do different? What'd you do
Yeah,
different than I do? So, yeah, there's been quite a few difficult ones, but um, that's like I said too, not to keep sounding like a broken record. That's why we try to place them in homes that are experienced and because this is what I do for a full time job, and I'll tell you sometimes like I just have a horse that I come home and I just scratch my head all night, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. Um, and sometimes I'm just not the person for that horse. I'm just not the person, and
Yeah.
we've seen it. There's two other trainers plus myself at the barn, and sometimes we one of us will be like, "Hey, I can't get it with this horse. I just can't get this horse to think it through, or can't get this horse. Maybe I'm telling it wrong." And another trainer will come in, and they'll get it. And it's just sometimes you're just not the person for that horse. The energies don't line up. And my own energy, like I said, I'm very task driven, very goal oriented, and I want to get it done. And let's try to make as much progress as we can. And I've had to learn a lot of patience with that because um it's very difficult to try to rush this process with them. And so the two ladies that work at the barn with me, they're very much, they're going to take their time, and, they're going to make it all sweet and loving, and not saying that like I'm out here just, roughhousing with them, but like I'm, a little bit able to kind of work through things a little bit more. But sometimes it just takes a different touch to get them going. So just speaking on difficult horses, that's, you know, we've run into some, but, too few to remember.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely something I learned with the Mustangs. We often learn that one specific approach is the way to do it. And with Mustangs, I think it's a lot of trial and error. You have to kind of see what works, see what hits with them, and adjust it when it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's what's really cool about where I work is there's three different trainers, and all three of us have sort of a different method and how we go about training. And it's really cool to get to see a horse that all three of us have worked. When there was four of us there at one point in time, and like we were putting out some rock solid, really good horses. Because like you'd have me come in and start the gently process and teach them X, Y, and Z, and then the other two or three trainers would come in, and like by the time that horse was finished out of its requirements for the tip program or for forever branded, it was rock solid, and, like, we were able to put, like, really good foundations on these guys, and that time period, like, we were just, like we were rocking and rolling, and it was great, like, we were finding horses homes, and it was just rolling through. So, that's the really cool thing about, like, having multiple trainers, having the ability to have multiple trainers is because sometimes, I'm so used to doing things this way, and sometimes it takes doing it that other way, or, modifying it just a little bit just to get the horse to understand and kind of learn. Um, and it teaches us too, So I think that's the most important thing is you can never learn too much. And I get stuck in my way sometimes, and I'm like, no, we're gonna do it like this. And it can't be that way.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that over time your approach has changed or different strategies that you've learned?
I some of the trainers and stuff I've watched, like, on YouTube, or, I've got, a group of friends that, like, I can call them, and I'm like, it's what I found is I started out um, very much just like the soft, really kind of approach, and that really worked for horses that appreciated that. The first time I encountered a difficult horse on my own, I was just kind of like, well, I don't know what to do. And sometimes, it's just like with any, 1,000-pound animal or horse you're training. There's a time to be firm, not aggressive, and not mean, but firm with them. And so one of the things that I've like how it's changed over time for me is like I've added that into my toolbox, and like I will always start out really calm and sweet and kind. But if the horse being kind of amp up their attitude towards me as far as like, being super flighty or super nervous. Like I try to get them to come back down, but also at the same time maintain that level of respect between each other. It's healthy for us to have a very good sense of respect for them and for them to have a very good sense of respect for us. So just kind of over time, as my training has, as I've learned, I've taken more of a I've gone from a very, like, soft, like, kind of I'm very scared approach to a, "Hey, let's meet in the middle, and, I don't wanna be any firmer with you than I need to be, and you don't need to be any firmer with me than you need to be." And so but, we're always learning, I still come home now and I sit and watch videos and, I mean, you'd be surprised what you can find on YouTube, so, um,
Yeah.
it's always, I'm always adding little different things into my toolbox.
Yeah, I think that is a super important point because I think in the horse world, there can tend to be two extremes. One where it's like, you're the boss, do what I say. This is what we're going to do, get this done. And the other one where it's like, we never want to cause the horse discomfort. We never want to push them beyond things. And I think the reality is for that growth and learning, they definitely have to go outside their comfort zone. And it has to be, they have to push themselves a little bit and we have to push ourselves a little bit. But I also think with Mustangs especially, like, if you go in there with, like, "I'm the boss, this is what we're gonna do," a lot of times it's not gonna go very well.
Right. Yeah, I always tell, everybody, I want the horse to be I want to start training the horse as soft as possible. But I always tell everybody, like, y you if you never put them under a certain amount of pressure and everything is just super quiet and sweet the whole time, the first time they need to get energy and they need to get amped up. You step in a hole of a hornet's nest or something, and you need to, get out of there quickly. You that you're more inclined to know what your horse is going to do because it's been put under a certain amount of pressure. If everything is sweet and kind and then your horse gets stung by a hornet, it you don't know what it's gonna do because you've never put it under that amount of pressure. That like, with your heart rate up, your adrenaline running, it's a recipe for disaster. So, like, it's like, just kind of agreeing with you. It's good to, like, really put horses in a spot of, "Hey, it can be, really sweet and nice, and we're gonna get our energy up here, and we're gonna, be a little bit firmer here, but you're gonna appreciate when everything is really calm as well." And I always tell people there's firm and not mean and aggressive, right? You
Yeah,
just to be firm, you don't have to be mean and aggressive. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like that pressure test or those places where it's, like, things get a little excited, uncomfortable, maybe for both parties, those are periods where trust is built between horses and humans?
Yeah, absolutely. For for a long time, I kinda was under the impression of, like, I never when I first started training, I never wanted to get the horse amped up. I never wanted to see the horse sweat or do anything like that. And what I've found just kinda over time is that the moment that I can kind of put some pressure on them and, like, I'm not going in there and, like, you know, this wild horse just flagging it or something, like, like I said, I'm very cool about how I do things, and what I want though is them to understand that there's gonna be a point in time that we are gonna be up, and then when we come down, when I bring them down, I always try to, like, "Hey, I wanna be the one that's there where they're catching their breath, where they're realizing, 'Oh, that didn't hurt me,' or 'Oh, that didn't get me,'" and they look to me and yeah, looking with me and hanging out with me, that's the answer, that's the calm, that's the quiet. And that's the moment that you can kinda almost see, like, a light switch go off in their head, and they start wanting to follow you around because they're like, "Okay, it's never gonna get dicey again because I have my friend here with me." And that, to me, like, that's the ultimate trust is when they look to you to calm down. If a situation gets dicey, they want to listen to what direction you're giving them, instead of going into business for themselves.
Yeah. I think also those moments can help the people who are working with them to know how to react. Just making me think. I just took one of my horses out with my daughter. She was on one of the other horses, and the horse I had, he does not like being alone. And my daughter kind of took off a little bit ahead of us, and he just really started reacting. And I know in the past, like I probably would have panicked even more.
Yeah,
And I mean, he was getting pretty upset, and it wasn't anything intentional. It wasn't something we purposely put there. But because I had kind of had some experience, I was able to stay a little bit steadier, even though I was getting a little dicey sometimes. I was like, please don't kick me. Um, so I think though that's even important for the people to just build that confidence also that it's like I can be that steady presence to be able to let them know that yes, your herd mate's all the way up there, but you're still okay right here. And I do think that that is a benefit to the horses that they are not always having to live in this constant state of panic, and the
right.
smallest thing just turns into a crisis for them.
Yeah, it's that whole thing, that there was a trainer I talked to a little while back, and he talked about making yourself the like kind of the herd leader, or things like that, and I subscribe to that as far as like, yeah, I want them to look to me for direction, but horse training is, and just horses in general, it is a partnership. Is I want them to like I want us both to have a, like I said, a healthy respect of each other. And so as far as like the people we adopt to, and our clients and things, like I try to tell them that too, like, hey, like you don't want to be the boss with an iron fist and rule down on them. You want to be a partner in this, and like listen to them, trust them, because they're going to give you the same respect. We hope we put enough training into them that that is the case, that they want to listen to you and they want to respect you. And um, but there's some horses that are little outlaws, and they know that, oh, I can get away with something with you, and
Yeah.
so it's just about having the knowledge there too to kind of go in and remedy that in a way that's not detrimental to the horse's health, or, like overall mental health and well-being. But building that partnership to me is more important than just, I mean, you're more than likely you're going to listen to somebody that's, being kind and caring with you than somebody that is like yelling and screaming at you the whole time. So,
Yeah.
it's real important for me to know that there's a partnership there with the horse in general.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting with Mustangs because I think a lot of times they are very keen on each person. They really can take advantage of those places where they can maybe see, oh, he or she's a little unsure here, or I can maybe get away with a little more here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a benefit because that helps us see like areas where we can improve, but it doesn't
Yes,
make it
ma'am.
easy.
No, it's funny you said that. I had a guy come out to the barn the other day, and we don't have very many riding horses, at the barn, horses that we start under saddle. Very few and far between. We will have a couple, from time to time, and, he's coming out looking at one of the ones that we've started and rode, and he got a little nervy with her when he was getting on her. And so, everybody at the barn kinda had a discussion, and luckily I had my horse, Newt, and he's a big, 4-year-old paint horse, and he is just as gentle as they come. Um, and he's like, we discussed, and we say, let him ride Newt for a little bit, just to kind of get his confidence up, and so Newt he's solid, he's really good. I put my little 5-year-old niece on top of him, and he just pokes around, but he also knows that if he senses even the smallest little bit of like, you don't really have it in you. Um, so we get the guy in the saddle, and Newt he just won't do anything. He just wants to stand there, and the guy's like, kind of putting some pressure on him, and I'm like, yeah, mock his feet a little bit, and Newt says, no, you don't have it in you. Well, then I have to get on Newt, and I have to say, hey, Newt, like we're going to do this. And he does it. But then that guy gets back on, and it's the same thing. And so like seeing that, like I know, like that this horse will do everything that I ask it to. But he also is smart enough to know, like, hey, you this new guy, you don't really have it in you to do it. So but it shows me like I need more people to ride him. I need more people to do things with him because he respects me, but like, is he gonna respect, just any other Tom, Dick, and Harry? So
Yeah.
it's fun to get to see that kind of happen in live, time because it's like, okay, well, I know what I need to fix now.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's funny. I've had that exact same experience where we had a family come ride the horses and yeah, great with the kids, kind of lead lining with them and they just did not want to listen to some of the other
right,
riders
yeah.
there. They're just like, yeah, I'm not doing this today.
No, no. It's
So,
like those horses you go, to those trail rides at, like, state parks and stuff, those horses, they know just to follow the other horse in front of them. But the moment
yeah,
something's out of whack or, they're just not feeling it that day, that's when you get those little counterfeit ponies that are like, "Ah, well, I'm just gonna walk off this way. I'm gonna turn around and go back to the barn," and these people just like, "I don't know what to do." So yeah, it's
yeah.
fun. It's fun to get to see that just from a training perspective, getting to see that and go like, "Okay, I know what I can do now to fix this."
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because we do expect horses like anyone should be able to jump on and ride. Like when I got my horses, I felt like that was a little bit of my goal. And I was just thinking about it last night and I was like, I don't think I can just put anyone on there unless they're willing to, like, you've got to be willing to learn and start being able to listen to the horse because that's just not how, at least my horses are.
Right, yeah, yeah. Well, as a horse trainer, you want to make a horse that like anybody can get on and
Yeah.
ride. I mean, even if you have no experience. So just a little side tangent is like I said, I was always the maintenance guy kind of doing stuff. I never actually rode a horse up until about 3 years ago.
You know?
So like I'm training wild Mustangs as a
Yeah.
full-time job, but I don't know how to ride. I can get the horse to that point. Like I can teach it to saddle, I can flex it around, and we can do all the fun little desensitizing stuff. I just can't ride that horse. And so like I would tell other people that, other trainers, and you talk about getting laughed at, like
Oh, yeah.
these guys, they come at you. And so like I like really like have really knuckled down the last couple of years of really just really learning how to ride and do things like that. And so just from a horse training perspective, like that's what I want is I want to make a horse that somebody that doesn't know how to ride can ride. And so like seeing that happen or like hearing about your experience, like I'm like, okay, I can work with that, I can make something happen there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. It definitely also gave me like, oh, they need to work in the arena more because we're always
Yeah.
on the trails or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I do think that is certainly important for horses, but also as the people that have them, it's important that we are always learning. But to what you were kind of saying, I do think that shows there is a lot that you can do with horses from the ground. And that really is where the foundation is built for a successful horse that you can ride.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and it's just especially in the the area that I'm in. Like we do a lot of the groundwork and genitling and things like that in preparation for the saddle. Um and and it's probably just the way I think, but when I train a horse, I'm training it to be under saddle.
Hmm.
Unless, somebody has come up to me and said, I want this horse, but it's never going to get ridden. It's never going to do anything other than just this, right? I will train that horse for just that. But any other horse, I train it to get started under saddle with that thought process in mind. But I make sure to put a lot of emphasis on the things that like leading. It needs to know how to lead really, really well. It needs to stop when you stop. It needs to move its forequarters, hindquarters, and picking up its feet, so that it can get trimmed and things like shoes, whatever. Things like that, like have to be like that foundation has to be solid. Um, and just in order to make sure that even if you get this guy home and he just he doesn't want the saddle, he doesn't want you on him, but he's really good to lead around the pasture, he's really good for your kids to play with. Like that's where for me that's the most important thing getting that
Yeah.
foundation solid, you know?
Yeah, and I do think that's the reality. Most people do get a horse because they want to ride it. So I think that is one of the ways that we help keep the horses safe and in carrying homes is by getting them to a point where they provide value that people are willing to invest and commit to them.
Absolutely, yeah. So do you train horses as well
I
or
don't train them. I just have 3 of my own
oh,
that,
okay.
one was trained at saddle trained at the prison, um, but that only goes so far. You know, the first time we
Yeah,
got him
yeah,
home, I put the saddle on and he flipped over. I was like, "Oh, okay.
yeah,
We did way too much too fast." And,
yeah,
in retrospect, I'm like, "Well, he's in a completely different environment with kids running around and dogs running around." And here I'm like, "Saddle up," where he came from the prison where it's all adults and a much different environment.
yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, I don't train for other people, but I definitely have done the work on my
Yeah,
horses, and
yeah.
so learned a lot from them, still working on all of that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know, and so, that's really cool that, like, you've taken that and, you're starting you have this podcast, and it's, starting to reach out and stuff to people that are involved in the Mustang world, it's or just the horse world in general because it's something to me that, there's not enough talk about it. There's talk in that small circle, but there's not enough talk about it just in general. The general public needs to know about, what's going on with these guys and how they are and how great they can be.
Yeah. I agree. It's definitely something that motivated me to start talking about it because one, they just made a huge difference in my life. But then, yeah, if you're not very specifically in the Mustang world, like I had been around horses my whole life. And when I saw my first mare, I'm like, what is a Mustang even? I've
Right.
heard of it, but like I really don't know that much about it. So definitely a whole new world that a lot of people are unaware of. I've definitely talked to people who didn't even know that there's wild horses still. So.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was a myth. I thought like,
Yeah,
that
kind of a story from the
yeah,
Western
like,
days or something.
yeah, like, Wild Bill out there and he took all the Mustangs, ran away. Now we just have domesticated horses. I didn't know that this was the thing. And so like it's, pretty interesting to know that, I mean, and there's still tons of them out there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, it getting the other people, getting the general public, the people that love horses involved is, it's something that needs to happen. And then I'm hopeful that, like, I can give a horse to somebody one day that, will take it and, have another person fall in love with it, and they want another one, and they want another one, and then all the wild
Yeah.
horses are gone, and I'm out of a job, and it's okay
Yeah.
because all the horses are saved.
Yeah,
So,
that would be a great world, right?
yeah.
Lots of work to do to get there
Yes,
still.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would I would love to see them valued more in the world that we have because I think they have a lot of value, but it's unknown also. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem that, people are having with the Mustangs is that they're not they're not papered, and you can't trace their lineage back to Doc Bar or, whomever, and but that doesn't mean they're not, just as good of a horse. I mean, they're not bred for a specific discipline, but they're hardy, they're healthy, they're very athletic. Like you can convince them to do a lot, and it's just about you know um, it's just about the work that you want to put into them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do think that they have an image issue out there is just kind of being the mutts of the horse world and there's a lot of them, so they're easy to come by, easy go.
Yep.
Um, but like you say, there are some things that make them really great. I think that hardiness is definitely one. I think another one is like if you want to learn and to learn about yourself, like the Mustang is a horse that will help you do that for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They'll teach you a lot. It taught me a lot of patience. When I started doing this, I was just an impatient 20-year-old, and now I'm 34, and I'm like I feel like this old man that I just want to sit around and because like I'm just used to sitting and waiting on them to
Yeah.
work their mouth a little bit to relax and just learn a little bit, and so it's made me a very very patient person, which is like anybody that knew me younger, they'd say, "Oh, yeah, he needs some patience." So, Yeah,
Yeah.
they're great. They're great for things like that. You learn a lot more about yourself than you do just about horse training in general.
Yeah, and they will legitimately teach you some life skills and kind of find those gaps where it's like, well, here's why you're having problems in your life is because
Yeah,
you're impatient with everything or
yeah,
you're unsure of everything. You have no confidence, whatever that
yeah.
might be. They're really
Yes,
good
ma'am.
at kind of bringing that to the surface and getting you to work on it because a lot of times that's where you're having issues is one of those areas where it's like I'm not great in this area and that shows up when you're working with the horses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have, I've oftentimes found myself like comparing my life situations to horse training, and I don't think like any of my ex-girlfriends or anything would think that's a great idea because, like, I'm just going to be patient. You're going to figure this out, or whatever. So it's one of those things, like I said, it kind of gets ingrained in you and you want to, uh, you wanna, like, work horses in your life as well, like, in your own, like, stuff that's happening, I've like I said, I've found times that I'm looking at a situation that I'm going through personally, and I'm like, "Okay, like, well, I'm a horse trainer, figure this out. How would I figure this out with horses?" And, there's gotta be some sort of disconnect there. Maybe I'm the weird one, but,
No,
that's
I
just
mean,
how
I do
it
the
is.
same thing. I think there's so many correlations for how you approach horses is how you approach life. And horses give you this really immediate, clear feedback. Well, Mustangs, especially, I will say, and
Yes.
some Mustangs in particular will give you very clear feedback of like, why are you doing this? And I have found a lot of times where it's like, oh, I can now take this into my human life. Be like, oh, well, that explains some of the reactions I'm getting, some of the situations I've created for myself,
Right, yes, ma'am.
because they were able to give me that insight into my personal way of approaching the world.
Yeah. Horses are funny how they do that, especially the Mustangs. They're funny how they'll do that to you, it's great.
Yeah, it is great. Are there any horses that you've had particularly memorable experiences with or that stick in your mind?
Um, the very, very first horse that I worked, that I kinda gentled myself, that was, we named her Indy, and she was this big stout yearling, and she's probably a long yearling now that I think about it. But she was just big and stout. She was the very, very first horse that I trained. And like I said, earlier, I will never forget that experience of like picking up her foot for the first time and like cleaning it out and like thinking, oh, wow, like you don't want to kill me. Like you trust me enough to do this. And so, um, the experiences like that like that one is always going to kind of be burned into my mind, and when you've done, well over 300 now, you're just kind of like, you know, every horse is unique, but you know, uh, they're all uniquely original, and it's one of those things. Like I just I remember the one that really got me into it, that hooked me into it, and like she's great. She's off with a lady now, and she's just this big horse. But that one will always be the one that I'm like, okay, like that's the one that got me involved in this and got me hooked into it. Now there's experiences I've had with other horses, but for the most part, you learn to categorize them by just really good experiences. Like this horse, whether I did 3 horses today or whatever, all 3 of these were good experiences in my head. But that one will always be the one that I remember, getting to go around and pick up all 4 of her feet and then loading her to the trailer, for the first time. Like, you know, you can't forget something like that. So it's and, the very first horse that, like, I started under saddle myself, like, you'll never forget things like that. Um
Yeah.
it's humbling, but, it's doing so many at a time, it's kind of like, okay, I just categorize them now into really good experiences with these horses.
Yeah, and I do think when you have those first experiences, it really gives you insight into how much trust horses are putting in humans when we're asking them to pick up their feet, which are basically their only defense. for safety, or to go in this tiny little box that's then going to
Right.
move. You get a different perspective when you have a Mustang who has been wild their whole life and now they're willing to follow you into a trailer or to stand there while you're picking up their feet.
Yeah.
Certainly changes the way that you see horses and just the willingness that they have to live a life
Oh
with
yeah.
humans.
Oh yeah. And like you said, just I want to be as good of an experience for them, and I want them to have a really good experience with me. Um, and so getting to that level of trust, like the building blocks are always there. And just kind of like in the tip program, how, or the Forever Branding program, how we train, or how I train is, we teach them to lead, teach them to pick up feet. And the very, very last thing that I teach them is to load into the trailer. And that's because like I need you to be really, really good in here. I don't need you having freak out and meltdown or anything, because it's going to be me and you in this little aluminum box, and you've got to trust me and I've got to trust you. And I mean, I do it that way for safety, but it's also, by then I hope I've laid enough solid foundation and trust with this horse that when I get up there, it's going to look to me and go, "Hey, you're calm. Everything's great. I know I can be calm and everything's going to be great."
Yeah. What advice do you have for someone who might want to become involved with Mustangs or to get one of their own?
Um, well, to get involved with them, I say find you a trainer that, there's several trainers that specialize in Mustangs. It's like we talked about earlier, they're horses, but they're a different breed of horse, and so having somebody um that that knows Mustangs and knows how they can react and things like that. That's real imperative into like getting involved with them. And finding somebody that suits your kind of your beliefs on how horses should be trained. Um, I
Yeah.
never believed that horses should be, three-legged and roped and laid down and all this stuff. Not Mustangs especially, but not
Yeah.
horses in general.
Right.
So find a trainer that specializes in Mustangs and can, meet your expectations of training and how you think, horses should be trained. And if you don't know that, like obviously, like look around, do some, go visit different barns, go visit different trainers, watch some videos. The internet is the greatest thing in the world. You can type it
Yeah.
in and find it. So I mean, it just getting involved with them and just making sure that you have a big enough toolbox yourself. And always be able to like listen to advice or criticism or whatever. I have a setting that I tell all the doctors or people that when I put on clinics or anything, do you have any critiques, criticism, comments, or anything like that? Um, it's because I want feedback, just as a trainer myself. Um, so it's like if you wanted to come watch me, like just know that I'm going to have questions for you too. Like, what do you think I did it right? And so finding somebody that has that same belief is real important to that, because you can go out and if you're never trained before or you've never done anything like that before, you can go out and watch this guy, rope this horse and, tie it to a tree or whatever, they do. But that's going to be your first introduction into it. And that's not the way, that's not the way training should work, in my opinion. Like we talked about earlier, there's a difference between firm and aggressive.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
so, yeah, find the style that suits you and find a trainer that is willing to do that style and spend lots and lots of time, as much time as you humanly can with that trainer. Because Mustangs, they're different. They're gonna do you think you got them figured out and then a new one pops up?
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, just being open to learning and to not feeling like you have all the answers. No matter how long you've had horses in your life, I think that can be huge that you're willing to learn a new way that works.
Oh
And
yeah.
that what works for one horse may or may not work for another horse. So I
yeah,
love that
yeah.
advice. And I also think it's so great. There are so many trainers out there these days that are doing it in ways where it really is building a partnership versus being a dictatorship, where you're able to really work together and build a relationship with your horse. So I do love that also.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, I mean, you can do it with domesticated horses, and, they pick up on things a lot quicker, and I feel like that's where we get into this tricky thing is that, like, people don't have the patience to teach a Mustang, to take a saddle pad for the first time or to take a saddle for the first time. And so they get frustrated, they get, impatient, and that's where that, old 1800s cowboy comes out, and we're
Yeah.
gonna, lay him down, and and you don't have to go through all that. Just be patient with them, be understanding that this is all new to them.
Yeah.
They're used to seeing their buddies walk around on four legs, and we're two-legged aliens,
Yeah.
throwing a
Yeah.
piece of cow on their back. It's just a matter of
Right.
like being
When you put it
patient with
that
them.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and patience is such a huge one, and it's one that's hard in the world today because we're so used to having everything we want instantly. We
Yeah.
click on Amazon and get delivered to our house. But what a incredible skill also that you will gain if you can go in there and have that patience and be okay with things. Not being able to accomplish the task that maybe you went into, but being more open to learning
Yeah.
and exploring
Yeah.
that relationship.
It's great. Like I said, I'm one of those people now. I just come home and I'll sit and watch different training videos online just to even if I pick up the smallest like little thing, like
Yeah.
where I need to stand. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I've learned a ton from this video, or this person or whatever. I try at least once or twice a year to go out to a clinic of another trainer and just learn. Even if I just audit, I just want to hear what you have to say, and because you can always learn something. You either learn what to do or what not to do, and either way you're learning, and that's important for me. Is to in order to give my horses the best possible start to life, I need to be able to cross off all those boxes of did I try this? Did this work? Did this not work? Is it just me? You know?
Yeah. Well, to wrap up, let's talk a little bit about why we're both here. We kind of got connected for the Horses for Mental Health campaign. Tell us a little bit about the work and the connections you have. We're both ambassadors for Samson's Strength Sustainable Veterans Project. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing there.
So I met Kathleen and Dave. They came out and adopted a couple. I think they've gotten like seven from us
Oh,
now. I
I
don't
don't know. I
know.
feel
Yeah.
like they have more
Yeah.
every time I talk to them.
Yeah, yeah, so they got some draft horses from us too, that,
Yeah.
we just kinda picked up. But I met them at the barn, and I'm apparently way too friendly, I guess, and I just wanna make friends with everybody, and so, no, just joking around. I wanted to get involved with their program, just because, like, it's as somebody that, like, has like, I have a cousin that, served, and, I went up and visited him not too long ago. I was in Kentucky for Road to the Horse, and we just got to talking about it, and I was like, "Yeah, like, the horses have been a really safe spot for me to land when, my mom passed and everything. They're really good for just therapy, just getting to spend time with them," and so getting involved with Dave and Kathleen at Sampson's is definitely, um, it's something that brings me joy. They're salt of the earth people. I love them to death. They're always willing to listen to you and just kind of absorb whatever you have to say, and I absorb whatever they say as well. They put on a clinic. I've helped them, put on a clinic at the barn before, and I think we've actually got another one planned for May, and the goal of it is to just kind of, outreach a little bit more and try to get as many people involved with the programs and, as we possibly can.
Yeah. That's awesome. How have horses positively impacted your life? Just going along with the theme of how horses can really help us, have a good, well-rounded life.
They've definitely showed me, um, they've showed me that there's different ways to for me to be. Um, I just am innately just anxiety ridden,
Me
and
too.
then getting to be yeah, getting to be around a horse that, especially like a wild Mustang that is you think you have anxiety, like, wait till
Yeah.
they see you, you know?
Yep, they'll show
And
you.
so yeah, it's kind of made me like calm down and focus just on my own self and how I appear to the outside world, not even just to them, just to my peers around me. Um, it's definitely been an delightful experience, like, and just, like I said, my mom died a couple of years back, and, my boss lady was I'm dealing with this, and I'm one of those people that I'm like, don't nobody's gonna see me sweat, and I'm gonna just keep my head down and
Power
work
through.
and all that. Yep, and, my boss lady, God bless her, came up to me and she said, "You just need to go spend time with horses. Just go out into a field, go to a pasture and just sit with them." And they definitely had this powerful way of kind of, settling you down and letting you be vulnerable. And because they're not going to judge the fact that you're out there, crying or
Yeah.
you're mad or whatever, they're not going to judge that. They just want to know what's up with you, and
Yeah.
they don't give advice. They don't try to take your problems away. They just want you to soak in it. And to me, like that has been a really good experience as far as like just like now I know like when I get upset or if I have something tough going on in my life, I just went through a life change back in October. And like, I've just, same thing. I've dove into my work and I've worked. Luckily, my job is with horses and I can just spend that time with them and let them just kind of heal me from the outside in, and if even if you've never experienced a bad time in your life, you should still go spend time with horses.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, I think everyone probably will, but horses are a great place to go, and I think you just highlighted two of the incredible aspects of how they can really help us as we are living in the human world, and one is that they give us that presence, that can be hard to find in the human world. We don't always wanna talk about what's going on, even though we
Right.
may need to, have that time to grieve or to process situations, and horses just very naturally can give that to you, like you say, not a formal program, not going in there and talking about it, just being next to a horse. And then also the anxiety piece, it's such a cool place to like practice skills to actually bring your anxiety down. I had
Yeah.
the same experience. I didn't even realize how much anxiety I had and until I started working with my mare and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, just so much." But by being committed and wanting to push through, like, I learned some things that could help me do that in my regular life and to be a little bit more aware of it. So, really
Yeah.
great points that I've also seen in my life of how these horses can really help us and benefit mental health. I think that's probably one reason we both jumped on board to be able to participate in the Horses for Mental Health campaign to just bring that awareness that there is another way that it doesn't have to always be traditional therapy. It doesn't always have to be sitting and talking about your problems or completing a workbook, but that these horses offer some really powerful tools to help us all improve our life.
Yeah, that like I said, they've been the best thing for me, and it may not be for everybody, but it definitely has made an impact on my life. Uh, you know, the way they are with people, even if you've like I said, you've never had a bad time in your life, they're gonna show you something
Yeah.
and you can just expose your bare soul to them and they will take it in and they will do whatever they need to kind of relax you down and you learn different things about yourself just getting to spend time with them and and I think especially for veterans that have served our country and have had traumatic experiences, getting to spend time with an animal that was once feral and running all over the place and was scared of you, getting to spend time with that animal and see it just relax and melt with you, and that's a healing experience. And if I had the funds, I'd make it mandatory for everybody, that if you have mental health issues, just to spend time with horses. Like,
Yeah.
it is they are God's gift to us, and
Yeah.
it's a matter of how we utilize it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And again, like it doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be riding horses. It doesn't even have to be a program dedicated to therapy in terms of horses, but really, as I think we've both experienced, just spending time with a horse can really help boost your mental capacity and kind of give you that release that you need to keep going when hard things come.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell everybody where they can find you, the barn you work with. Sounds like you're a great resources for people who might want a Mustang that's been gentled also.
Yes, yes. So we don't we're in the process of getting a Facebook and Instagram page kinda set up. I'll probably work on that after I
Okay.
get off this call. So you can find me just under my name on Facebook, and I work for a lady named Babby Steislinger, and we post horses all the time. We just post little fun things that happen around that you get to see. So feel free to check us out, and hopefully we can adopt you a horse or get you
Yeah.
to adopt a horse from us.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here today and also the incredible work that you're doing for Mustangs and for the people who take them in. I think there's a lot of people who have that desire and maybe not the skill set yet. So for you guys to be that step between the wild to taking one of these horses into your home where they're safe and cared for and will certainly do good things for you also is a
Yeah,
really beautiful thing, something that we definitely can't have enough of. There's more than enough
I
horses to
agree.
yeah, to have someone step into that role and work in that way. So thank you so much for the work you do and also the things that you've shared just on how the horses have impacted you and the work that you're doing with them so that people who might want a horse that has been gentle, been around humans, had a really good start, they'll be able to find you guys also.
No, thank you for letting me come on and yap in your ear for
Yeah.
an hour and a half or so. So I
Anytime.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.